Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, featuring the voices of G.B.M.H, Jake Johnson, Haley Steinfeld, Mahershala Ali, Brian Tyree Henry, Lily Tomlin, Lauren Velez, Nicolas Cage, Catherine Hahn, and Liev Schreiber, and directed by Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman. Now, before I get into this review, I'm going to just talk about a couple of things before I get into the movie. I remember being at Comic-Con earlier this year and seeing some of the footage. Some were raw, some were finished. And there's just some things about this movie that could be pretty good, but something that made my jaw hit the floor. I'll talk about it when I get into the review. But I did happen to see this twice. Once was the regular show on a Thursday evening at like 5 o'clock. And the second showing I went earlier today at a 1 o'clock in the afternoon showing. And I'm going to just be honest here. Will it be as good as any other Marvel movie this year? Let's get into it and find out. I know this is going to be Once Upon a Deadpool, in my opinion. I absolutely love the animation in this movie. I personally think it deserves not only the Golden Globes, but the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film, and the credits goes to the film's 3 directors, which I gotta say something right off the bat. When I was in my second viewing in IMAX, I had an audience member who was an aunt of Bob Persichetti, one of the directors, and I felt honored to be in that same theater with her. So, yeah, it felt very honorable for me, in my general opinion. When the movie opens, Chris Pine voices Peter Parker, a.k.a. Spider-Man, who narrates his popularity over the years, and I love the way he doesn't think about doing the dance from this one, because he has a point, and I thought that was hilarious, because that movie was god-awful, that Spider-Man 3, and you could see that review somewhere in the oldest sections. Miles Morales, voiced by G.B.M.H, is your average, ordinary, smart teenager who goes to school for the gifted, and I really like this character. While his dad drops off Miles off at school and tells Miles to say "I love you" to his father, aka Jefferson Davis, in front of his classmates, in which how humiliating. Miles cares for his Uncle Aaron, voiced by Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali. Or should I say voiced by. And I also like that character too. I really like his relationship with Miles. It's very heartwarming and refreshing that we follow Miles as a main character and as a Spider-Man character. And I also like it's the same spider that bit Peter Parker that bites Miles' hand and can hear things like in his own voice and head. And I just gotta say right now, I like the way how he flicks the spider off his hand. I thought that was pretty funny. Like the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. And I thought it was funny that Wanda, as Miles gets introduced to, meet for the second time after class, and he puts his hand on her head, or hair I should say, and they give her a side haircut while Miles is sticking on walls and on people, not purposely. Wanda is obviously Gwen Stacy, voiced by Haley Steinfeld, who I'm talking about next week as well with this movie. I also really like her as more here than ever I've ever had, including in such movies as Miles realizes he's a second Spider-Man and he sees Spider-Man in action with a monster that looks like Green Goblin, and that works for the Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk, voiced by Liev Schreiber, and I really enjoyed him here as a villain, much better than in this particular movie. The Kingpin kills Spider-Man with Miles as a witness, and that I thought was a very fun scene, which will set up the ending fight later in the film. Spider-Man gives Miles an assignment to plug in a chip in the machine that will destroy the world as you know it. And I'll again talk about the fight later on. Some purple goblin-looking guy chases Miles to kill him, which was rather fun. Meanwhile, he wants to stay one night at his parents' house. Jefferson Davis, who I didn't bring up, is voiced by Brian Tyree Henry, and his mother, voiced by Luna Lauren Velez. And Miles realizes he has to be Spider-Man and picks up the costume, and we get a Stan Lee cameo, which was fun. And Stan, you will be missed, pal. You will be missed. Miles trains to be Spider-Man and gets himself hurt and doesn't have the web power, and goes to Peter Parker's grave and tells him he can't do it without him, and shocks Peter B. Parker, and by B I mean Benjamin, I'm guessing, voiced by Jake Johnson, who in his universe divorced Mary Jane Watson because she wants kids and that scared him, and his marriage got too testy. And I like his take on Spider-Man, who comes from a one and different Spider-Verse, and cops chase Miles for being on a graveyard late at night, and that chase was fun and funny. Peter B, I'm going to call him throughout the movie, glitches because he's in the wrong Spider-Verse, I should say, and he reluctantly agrees to train Miles, and they go to the Kingpin's lair, and Peter B, aka Spider-Man, I think I should call him that for the rest of the movie, I'm not sure, gets distracted by Doc Ock's wife, voiced by Katherine Hahn, and he fights her with her tentacle arms, and chased Spider-Man, or Peter B, and Miles until Spider-Gwen, aka Gwen Stacy, yes, I said Spider-Gwen, by the way, folks, you might have saw that in the trailer, catches and meets up with Miles and Spider-Man, Peter B. I'm really enjoying these characters, the animation and plot. I like that Miles can go invisible and will control it later on. I like that Spider-Man Miles Morales can go invisible, and he tries to control it, but he can't seem to get to it till the very end, which I'll talk about later. Miles, Gwen, and Peter B go to Aunt May's house, who's voiced by Lily Tomlin, go into the lab, find a bunch of Spider-Men, like Spider-Man Noir, voiced by Nicolas Cage. How surprising. Spider-Ham, this is the part where my jaw hit the floor when I first heard about it at Comic-Con earlier this year. An Asian lady, I guess Spider-Girl with the robot, which reminds me of Big Hero 6. But I'm having fun, and I'm liking this movie so far. Miles finds out, remember that purple-looking guy? And turns out it's his Uncle Aaron. And I felt very bad for Miles that he has to fight his own uncle, even at Aunt May's place. And I really like that fight between the Spider Gang and the supervillains. And Miles is found by his Uncle Aaron. He's the new Spider-Man, the next Spider-Man, in his Spider-Verse. And I like the message that if you're Spider-Man, someone close to you dies. That happened in The Amazing Spider-Man. That happened in the original Spider-Man. That kind of happened in Spider-Man Homecoming. And becomes the hero the world deserves. I really like this message. It's kind of cool. It's sad, sure, but it's a nice message by the end of the day if you're Spider-Man. The Spider Gang coming to Miles' condo and gets Miles left in his dorm so he doesn't go to action with the Spider Gang and the Collider. And I forgot to bring up earlier, that's where Spider-Man was killed by Kingpin. And Miles eventually gets visited by his father and realizes he can be the next Spider-Man, and goes to Aunt May for a suit and turns it black and red and swings to the Collider. And what I love is the visuals of that sequence. And the Spider Gang sees there's a Spider-Man funeral and people dressed nice and as Spider-Man masks, and the Collider begins to attack on the city, and every single Spider person stops the bad guys, including Kingpin and Doc Ock's wife, and this fight is fast-paced and a whole lot of fun. Every single Spider person is back into their own world, and Miles stays in his own and stops the Kingpin and puts him out of for good. And Jefferson decides to work with Spider-Man despite that he doesn't agree with his methods. And Miles goes back to being a smart kid while being Spider-Man. Credits roll, and I like that as an ending. Credits roll with the thank you to Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, who died earlier this year, for making Marvel happen. The Christmas Spider-Man song that Chris Pine sings was hilarious, and I've got my own version I'll sing after this recording. But stay after the credits, folks, for a funny take of a Spider-Verse in 2099. Miguel O'Hara travels to the Spider-Man world in 1967, where they both argue and point at each other, was just absolutely hilarious. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. Better than Infinity War, I must confess that now, and the best Spider-Man movie ever. I really like these characters, and I think this movie is hilarious, fun, fast-paced, and just very entertaining. I love the animation style of the movie. Highly recommend it. Go see this movie, and I really hope this wins the Golden Globe and Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film. Honestly, I want it to. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I will be back in a minute or two to show you this song I made up from this movie. And until next time, with great power comes great responsibility.